This is Part 2, Episode 123. Hu Yuhao turned a little agitated, and was even unable to control himself. He pulled the handkerchief close to him, and his lips were trembling slightly. But why? Donga, why won't you appear in front of me? Why won't you stay? Don't you know how much I miss you? In the opposite tent, Tang Wutong was in a deep sleep right now. She didn't cultivate the night before. After she returned, she quickly fell into a deep sleep. There was even a slight grin on her face right now. The titles earned by Hu Yuhao and the others were quickly conferred to them. No permission was even sought from the imperial family of the Star Luo Empire. No matter whether it was accepted, everyone else apart from Hu Yuhao was conferred the title of a baron. Hu Yuhao was conferred the title of a viscount. Even though the titles of Baron and Viscount were the two lousiest ones in the peerage system, their titles were able to be inherited. This made them different. This meant that their future generations could enjoy the same titles. However, they weren't given any land for their contributions. 10 million gold soul coins were directly given to Hu Yuhao. Such a monetary reward was barely enough for him to purchase a high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tool. 10 million. If the Sun Moon Empire knew about it, they would be infuriated. Just the materials alone cost more than 10 million. However, given their contributions, the reward given by the Star Luo Empire was considered passable. After breakfast, the White Tiger Duke personally came to visit Hu Yuhao. He was stunned to discover that Hu Yuhao was different from how he had been over the past few days. He was full of energy right now, as if he had been given new life. His entire body was filled with strength. He had already washed himself up and changed into a clean set of clothing. Duke. Hu Yuhao received the White Tiger Duke. Yuhao, you've earned yourself a great merit this time. How are you? The White Tiger Duke asked amiably. Hu Yuhao smiled and replied, I'm already fine. Apologies for last night. I always suffer from side effects after using my self-invented soul skill. The White Tiger Duke nodded and said, it's great that you're fine. You've already been conferred a title, which is a decision that Her Highness and I came to after we discussed it with each other. We've lowered the value of your reward mainly because we have to take the feelings of our soldiers into account. Do you understand? Don't worry, we'll report what you've done to His Majesty. I believe he'll have other rewards for you. Hu Yuhao smiled and replied, no worries. I'm fine with the rest. It's already good enough that I've been made a Viscount. Did he really only value the title of a Viscount, and one that was hereditary? He had already taken his first step out. Dai Hao smiled and said, yes. As a Viscount, you can grant your wife and heirs titles too. Given your abilities, your potential is unlimited as long as you're willing to serve the Empire. Hu Yuhao's eyes brightened when he heard that his wife and children would be given titles too. However, he was in a good mood today, and managed to conceal his emotions. Duke, has the high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tool been returned to the Star Luo Empire? Yes, it's already been sent back. After this time, I believe that the Sun Moon Empire's defenses will become tighter. Wang Yiheng has already been killed, which is a huge blow to them. What other plans do you have in the future? Hu Yuhao nodded and replied, I'll continue to pester them. As long as I keep them on their toes and drain their energy, I'll be able to survey the Death God. The White Tiger Duke furrowed his brow and said, you still want to survey the Death God? You can't do that. It's too dangerous. Hu Yuhao smiled and replied, Duke, don't worry. Before I'm fully confident, I won't take the risk. What's the Sun Moon Empire's reaction been? Dai Hao shook his head and said, they haven't reacted yet. I can't wait for them to do something. It's best if they want to exact revenge. After hearing his words, Hu Yuhao's eyes flashed. He immediately knew that the White Tiger Duke would have come up with some kind of plan to complement his own plan. No wonder the White Tiger Duke was so notable. Although the Sun Moon Empire's Soul Engineer legions were strong, the Star Luo Empire's Soul Masters wouldn't be afraid of them if they were detached too far from the defensive system set up in the Mingdo mountain range. The White Tiger Duke naturally wished that the evil tyrant Soul Engineer Legion would lose their cool after Wang Yiheng's death, driving them to attack. However, it seemed like the leader over at the Mingdo mountain range was able to resist such a temptation. It seemed like things were very calm in the Sun Moon Empire. Hui Yuhao asked, "Duke, I'll make another trip and observe whether they've changed their surveillance soul tool setup." The White Tiger Duke nodded and said, "Be careful." "All right." Hui Yuhao was perfectly fine observing them from some distance away, given his immense spiritual power. Surveillance soul tools weren't sensitive towards spiritual power. After an hour, Hui Yuhao brought back accurate news. All the surveillance soul tools that belonged to the Sun Moon Empire had been pulled back in the direction of the Mingdo mountain range. This time, he didn't manage to locate any soul tools at all, though he didn't know whether it was because the Sun Moon Empire had pulled all of them back. In this way, the Sun Moon Empire's surveillance on the Star Luo Empire's troops would be significantly reduced. After receiving this news, the White Tiger Duke was delighted. With Hui Yuhao around, they were no longer devoid of information. "Report." An anxious voice could be heard from outside. "Come in." The White Tiger Duke, who was in a good mood, gestured towards Hui Yuhao. He was signaling to Hui Yuhao to sit down and take a rest. Hui Yuhao didn't stand on ceremony. He sat down beside the White Tiger Duke's seat. "Duke, intelligence from the Heavenly Soul Empire." A soldier rushed in and kneeled down on one knee in front of the White Tiger Duke before passing a letter to him. "Intelligence from the Heavenly Soul Empire. It's finally here." Hui Yuhao and White Tiger Duke were both jolted. The situation in the Heavenly Soul Empire was extremely important to the Star Luo Empire. It could possibly affect the entire war. Dai Hao quickly tore the letter open. He only scanned it a few times before his expression changed. He turned pale. His hand that was holding onto the letter started trembling. Hui Yuhao, who had just sat down, also immediately stood up. From Dai Hao's expression, he could tell that the situation in the Heavenly Soul Empire wasn't good. "You can leave first." Dai Hao tried to suppress his own feelings and waved to the soldier. The soldier retreated, and only he and Hui Yuhao were left in the tent. Hui Yuhao didn't probe further. At this point, perhaps the White Tiger Duke needed to calm down. If the White Tiger Duke could reveal anything, he would have told Hui Yuhao everything. Yuhao, the entire Doluo continent might experience a catastrophe this time. The White Tiger Duke sighed and passed the letter to Hui Yuhao. After hearing his words, Hui Yuhao's heart sank. After receiving the letter, he read it. The capital of the Heavenly Soul Empire, Heavenly Do City, has been occupied by the Sun Moon Empire. More than 1/3 of the Heavenly Soul Empire's territory had been taken over, and the empire is still being invaded at an alarming speed. Everything to the west of the Heaven Do City has landed in the hands of the Sun Moon Empire. The body sect's leader, Dubuzi, has been seriously hurt, and we are unsure whether he will survive. The body sect has lost half of its members, and 4 out of the 6 Soul Master Legions of the Heavenly Soul Empire have been destroyed. The remaining 2 are protecting the Imperial family, which is retreating toward the east. The Sun Moon Empire has deployed more than 300,000 soldiers, including 7 Soul Engineer Legions. Apart from the evil tyrant Soul Engineer Legion, the other Beast Lord rank Soul Engineer Legions are all involved in this mission. The Holy Ghost Church has deployed many evil Soul Masters to aid in this mission as well. Dubuzi was hurt by 2 evil Soul Masters. One of them appears to be the leader of the Holy Ghost Church. The ultimate Doluo, Long Xiaoyao, did not make an appearance. Right now, the Heavenly Soul Empire is doomed. The 2 remaining Soul Master Legions we have and the reinforcements from the Do Ling Empire are planning a rendezvous with whatever remaining troops we have. Hui Yuhao's expression changed after reading the contents of the letter. Even though he could guess where the Sun Moon Empire was going to attack, he didn't expect their attack to be so ferocious. Since the start of the war, only a few weeks had passed. However, the capital of the Heavenly Soul Empire had already fallen. It was important to note that the Heaven Do City was the first big city on the continent since 10,000 years ago. It was as notable as the Star Luo Empire's Star Luo city. In just a few weeks, the city had already fallen. The Heavenly Soul Empire's defenses had crumbled. This was completely unbelievable. Given such a speed, the Sun Mon Empire would take at most half to a month's time to completely occupy the Heavenly Soul Empire. When that happened, not only could they threaten the borders of the Star Luo Empire and Do Ling Empire, but they could even threaten Shrek Academy, which was in the center of the three empires. The White Tiger Duke and Hui Yu Hao were both silent in the tent. Such a situation was worse than what they had expected. Yu Hao, what should we do? The White Tiger Duke suddenly asked. After hearing his question, Hui Yu Hao knew that even the White Tiger Duke had started to panic, even though he was normally very calm. The Star Luo Empire's strength was all concentrated in the west, but they were restrained here by the Sun Moon Empire, because of the Mingdo mountain range. Given such a situation, the White Tiger Duke didn't have much of a choice. However, there wasn't a single choice that allowed him to completely deal with the situation they were facing. Retreat. If the Sun Moon Empire tried to force their way over the Mingdo mountain range, we would lose a lot of territory. Our citizens wouldn't have enough time to evacuate either. Continuing to directly fight the Sun Moon Empire is a bad choice too. Attack. Against the Death God, going in without a plan is suicide. We might sacrifice countless lives and suffer irreparable damage without even making progress. Once our losses become too severe, what will we have to fight the Sun Moon Empire? Save the Heavenly Soul Empire. What's there to save? Furthermore, what can the Star Luo Empire do if all our forces go over to reinforce the Heavenly Soul Empire? If the Star Luo Empire's troops reinforce the Heavenly Soul Empire without guarding Star Luo City, how will we be able to react if we are directly threatened by an invasion from an elite force of the Sun Moon Empire from the south? These questions kept on popping up in the White Tiger Duke's head. However, he couldn't find a way to deal with the problem. This was why he asked Hui Yu Hao. Just like Hui Yu Hao had predicted, the White Tiger Duke was in a state of panic right now. Suddenly, the curtains were pulled open, and a pale Princess Jojo walked in. As soon as she entered, she couldn't help but ask, "Duke, what should we do?" Princess Jojo was in charge of intelligence for the entire Star Luo Empire. Naturally, she was informed. What do we do? This was the question in both Dai Hao and Shu Jojo's minds. Shu Jojo looked at Dai Hao, but Dai Hao was looking at Hui Yu Hao instead. They were all panicking. Their fear had yet to metastasize. However, the entire Northwestern Field Army would most likely be engulfed by fear if this news spread. The morale boost that they had only just received yesterday from killing Wang Yiheng would most certainly vanish. Hui Yu Hao took in a deep breath. Comparatively speaking, he was the calmest among the three of them. Although he was from the Star Luo Empire, he didn't have strong ties to it. To him, Shrek Academy and Shrek City was his family and home. This was why he was much calmer than both the White Tiger Duke and Princess Jojo. Your Highness, let's stop all information from spreading first. We must not let anyone know about it, not even the leaders of the various Soul Master Legions. After hearing Hui Yu Hao's voice, Shu Jojo was quickly jolted to her senses. Yes, preventing all information from spreading was the most important thing now. She nodded forcefully and took a few deep breaths. Her voluptuous chest rose and fell continuously. She also gradually calmed down. She even forgot to greet the White Tiger Duke, and immediately turned around before leaving the tent. The White Tiger Duke looked at Hui Yu Hao. Seeing how Hui Yu Hao appeared so pensive, he gradually steadied himself. Hui Yu Hao's suggestion was right. Blocking off all information was the most important thing right now. It wasn't about performing surveillance anymore. Rather, it was about concealing the information that they had and preserving the fighting strength of the entire army. Yu Hao, we are in a disastrous situation right now. I don't see any hope of us breaking out of it. The White Tiger Duke sighed. Hui Yu Hao said, even so, we must still do our best. Duke, there are two ways we can choose to deal with the situation right now. Oh? Tell me about it. The White Tiger Duke's eyes brightened. Just as he was unable to think of any solutions, Hu Yuhao actually claimed that they had two solutions to choose from. To him, it was as if he had grabbed hold of a stalk of life-saving grass. Hu Yuhao said, "There are two ways for us to proceed. 1. We protect whatever we have. 2nd, we turn aggressive. By protecting whatever we have, I mean that we immediately retreat and use Star Luo City as our base to gather all our strength. At the same time, we'll ask for help from the Academy and implore them to send some strong individuals to meet with us. Concurrently, we'll need to ask the Douling Empire to gather whatever strength they have. After that, we'll enter the Heavenly Soul Empire from two different directions, exploiting the opportunity, just as the Sun Moon Empire has to divide its forces after invading the Heavenly Soul Empire to fight the main force of the Sun Moon Empire. By concentrating the strength of the Academy and the two empires, and even the power of the Soul Beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest, we can fight all out with the Sun Moon Empire. After all, we've ruled the Doluo continent for so many years. People's hearts are with us. Even if we suffer huge losses along with the enemy, we are still in an advantageous situation. During the final clash, we'll need the two empires and the Academy to contact all the hidden sects to join in the resistance against the Sun Moon Empire's invasion." After hearing Hu Yuhao's words, Dai Hao nodded repeatedly. It was indeed a good plan. However, there was a price to pay for using this plan. The price was close to half the land of the Star Luo Empire and the people who occupied that land. No one knew how the Sun Moon Empire would treat those people. This was also something that the White Tiger Duke wasn't willing to see. He didn't just love his soldiers. He also loved his own people. What about turning aggressive? Dai Hao was much more composed after hearing Hu Yuhao's first solution. Undoubtedly, Hu Yuhao's first plan was workable. Hu Yuhao's gaze turned sharper and he replied, "By turning aggressive, it means that we have to risk everything. According to your original intentions, we have to attack the enemy's most important site. As long as we can overcome the enemy's defenses in the Mingdo mountain range and fight our way into the Sun Moon Empire, their troops will definitely return to save them. When that happens, the Douling Empire, Heavenly Soul Empire and the Academy can combine to force the Sun Moon Empire's troops back to where they came from. Are you saying that we should use brute force?" The White Tiger Duke squinted and released a killing aura from his body. "I've thought of this idea. Perhaps we might stand a chance if we do that. But if we do it that way, we'll definitely suffer huge losses. Even if we manage to succeed, we'll still suffer heavy losses. And even if we break our way into the Sun Moon Empire, we might not have enough strength to threaten them." Hu Yuhao said, "I understand your worries. However, the main threat to us is the Death God. It's an irresistible force. If we can make the Death God lose its effect and influence the Sun Moon Empire's surveillance abilities, we can minimize our losses. The Sun Moon Empire only uses elite forces for defensive purposes. Their actual strength is at most 2 to 3 Soul Engineer Legions. Even if they concealed information about their strength earlier, they couldn't possibly have conjured up so many Soul Engineer Legions. According to the news from the Heavenly Soul Empire, the Sun Moon Empire has combined the strength of 7 Soul Engineer Legions and the Holy Ghost Church over there, which explains why they managed to take the Heavenly Soul Empire down so quickly. The original news was that the Sun Moon Empire had 10 Soul Engineer Legions. If we have 2 or 3 legions on our side, the Sun Moon Empire's imperial family will have to keep some troops with them to defend themselves. For example, the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion will need to stay with them. In this way, we won't be facing as many enemies. Let's overestimate their strength. Let's say that they have 3 Soul Engineer Legions, which comes up to about 1,000 Soul Engineers, along with a lot of Soul Tools. If they rely on terrain, they can most definitely stop us. This is why we need to wreak havoc first. Once we are able to inflict serious damage on them, we can then attack on all fronts." Dai Hao laughed bitterly. "Yuhao, your plan is indeed possible. However, its feasibility has to be built on the fact that we can cause damage to the defensive line of the Sun Moon Empire's Mingdo mountain range, and cause the Death God to lose its effectiveness. However, they have many surveillance soul tools. You've tried before too. Given our current abilities, how are we able to do it? It's too difficult. Hu Yuhao said, it all depends on our will. It's not impossible. I have a plan. Even without intelligence from the Heavenly Soul Empire, I was already willing to offer it to you. What plan? It's like this. Hu Yuhao remained in the tent for a long time. He only left at lunchtime. After having his lunch, he gathered his comrades and explained his strategy to them. No, I disagree. Shu Sanxia said. He was normally full of jokes. However, he appeared very serious at this critical moment. In the Tang sect, even Bei Bei listened to his opinions. Hu Yuhao said, Third Senior, I'm confident. Even so, I won't let you do it. It's too dangerous. Whether this strategy of yours work is solely built on the risk that you are facing. I won't agree to it as long as you're going to be subjected to any danger. Have you thought of the ramifications? What if you fail? You'll die. Hu Yuhao smiled and replied, I won't. The beast god won't let me die. Shu Sanxia sighed and said, however, you are taking too big of a gamble. What if the beast god can't handle it either? Once you venture that deep in, you'll need sufficient time. What if? Third Senior, there's no what if. I have to take this risk. If I don't, we will be in an extremely disadvantageous situation. If we wait for the Sun Moon Empire to consolidate their hold on the Heavenly Soul Empire, we won't be able to resist them, given the Star Luo Empire and Doling Empires lacking research in soul tools. At the same time, the Heavenly Soul Empire is being attacked from all directions, which endangers our academy. The academy nurtured us to be who we are today, and gave us strength. If I'm afraid of death at such a critical moment, I'll miss out on this opportunity. Yi Gai was suddenly a little agitated as she said, this is not an opportunity. This is a death wish. She suddenly stood up and looked at Hu Yuhao. Her breathing had evidently become a little quick. Have you not heard of the death god? 2,000 soul masters, who were at least soul sages, vanished without a trace in just one strike. No matter how strong you are, how can you possibly compare to 2,000 soul sages? It's the number one soul tool in the continent. No, you can't go. It's too dangerous. It wasn't just Shu Sanxia and Yi Gai. The rest also had the same expression on their faces. On the other hand, Tang Wutong was calmer, and didn't utter a word as she sat where she was. I am curious. How did you convince the White Tiger Duke? Jiang Nan Nan asked doubtfully. Hu Yuhao revealed an embarrassed look on his face. He had nothing to hide. I told him that the academy had just researched a new type of soul tool that can be used in critical times to resist any attack, a true invincible barrier. I also have my instant teleportation. If I'm far away, I'll be able to escape. Everyone's expression turned weird. Whatever invincible barrier was useless. As for instant teleportation, Hu Yuhao indeed had it. However, there was a limit to how far he could go. There wasn't any way he could escape the domain of the death god. Yuhao, you're playing with fire. Even if Elder Xian were here, he wouldn't agree to this plan. Hu Yuhao sighed and said, what other better plan do you have? Third Senior, everyone else, please don't worry. I'm really confident. Shu Sanxi's gaze turned passionate as he said, all right then, Yuhao. Let's do it this way. If you have to take this risk, I'll follow you. I want to be part of your plan. Hu Yuhao was stunned. After this, he heard Jiang Nan Nan say, me too. Apart from Tang Wutong, everyone else also expressed their stance. They wanted to join him in his fight. Shu Sanxia said, if you're willing to let all of us follow you, we'll let you go. He was clear that Hu Yuhao would be willing to sacrifice his own safety, but he wasn't willing to compromise the safety of others. He wanted to use this method to dispel the thought in Hu Yuhao's head. All right, all of you can join then. No one expected Hu Yuhao to agree, but he nodded and gave them a certain answer. Shu Sanxia was stunned, and looked at him a little doubtfully. Don't tell me he's really confident. He understood Hu Yuhao, but he wasn't completely confident that he would stray away from his plan given their demand. He couldn't take back his words anymore. Although there were still many doubts in his mind, he wasn't able to voice them upon seeing how determined Hu Yuhao was. Tang Wutong remained calmly seated where she was. She didn't express her wish to join this mission, and no one went to question her. Ever since Hu Yuhao had confirmed that she wasn't Wang Donga, everyone's attitude toward her had changed a little. She was just an outsider, while the others were from the Tang sect. She naturally didn't have the right to ask others to risk their lives. Hu Yuhao said, "All right. Since everyone is agreeable, let's discuss the details. This mission is extremely important. We'll have to take real care with every detail." After this, the Northwestern Field Army remained very peaceful for the next 2 days. Hu Yuhao also stopped the probing attacks that he had originally planned. The Star Luo Empire also strictly stopped all flow of information. News of the fall of the Heavenly Soul Empire didn't spread. Both parties were at a stalemate. In the night, the sky turned completely dark. There was a thin layer of fog in the sky tonight. When one peered into the sky, it was as if a layer of chiffon had engulfed the sky. There weren't any stars, and the moon was dim. This was definitely the night to carry out all sorts of covert operations. 2 figures rose into the night sky. They managed to get very high up under the cover of the night sky. "Yuhao, whether we succeed depends on this. If we don't, we can only choose to protect whatever we have," the White Tiger Duke said softly. At this point, his hands were under Hu Yuhao's armpits. His expression had evidently turned a little serious. He was well aware of the danger that Hu Yuhao was going into. If this mission failed, he would most likely end up dead. However, Hu Yuhao wasn't bothered in the slightest when he came up with this proposition. It was as if he wasn't the one whose life was in danger. This entire mission was too important for the Star Luo Empire. The price to pay for failure was huge. However, if they succeeded, they could influence the situation across the entire continent. Hu Yuhao smiled as he said, "Duke, don't worry. I'll do my best. I believe I have the ability to succeed." The White Tiger Duke took a deep breath, and then freed up one hand. He took off a necklace and placed it in front of Hu Yuhao. "This is the tooth of a tiger. My father gave it to me in the past. I heard that it's what remained after my ancestor killed a tiger-type soul beast. It can protect you. Put it on. No matter what, I hope you can return alive." Hu Yuhao turned his head around to look at Dai Hao. At that moment, he felt that he had lost control of his emotions, and was about to tell the White Tiger Duke about his background. After receiving the necklace, he first felt that it carried the body warmth of the White Tiger Duke. After that, he sensed a strong killing aura from it. The tiger's tooth had already become dark yellow, and the tooth's colors fully displayed how ancient it was. This tiger's tooth could be said to be the White Tiger Duke's keepsake. "He actually gave it to me. He's my father, is this his gift for me?" Hu Yuhao's eyes couldn't help, but well with tears as he hurriedly turned his head around and said, "Thank you." The White Tiger Duke smiled and said, "I should be the one who's thanking you. Everyone in the Star Luo Empire will remember what you've done for the Empire, and I will personally celebrate your success when you return. The princess has already promised as long as you complete this task successfully, you'll be given the inheritable title of Marquis." The title of Marquis was second only to the title of Duke amongst the list of titles of the nobility. The Star Luo Empire hadn't appointed a hereditary Marquis for several hundred years, and one had to understand that a Marquis territory would contain a large city at least, let alone the fact that the title could be passed down to future generations. That was truly a blessing. Hu Yuhao nodded silently, and a faint smile appeared on his face. The wetness in his eyes abruptly disappeared as he gazed into the distance, and many wonderful emotions resonated in his heart. "Donga, was that really you beside me that day? For you, I will try my best to survive." The air became increasingly cold around them. They had already risen to further heights, and everything around them became increasingly quiet amidst the darkness of the night. Intense chills appeared continuously and assaulted their bodies. The method that Hu Yuhao decided on was identical to the first time he went to scout the Mingdo mountain range's main peak. He would glide through the air. This was the only way he could close the distance most quickly, while it was difficult for him to be discovered. At the same time, this method minimized his soul power expenditure. The White Tiger Duke escorted him personally this time as well. The ground was gradually swallowed by the darkness, and the thick clouds in the sky were all that could be seen. The chills in the air didn't affect him, and Hu Yuhao's heart was very calm in this moment, terrifyingly calm. Hu Yuhao didn't hang the tiger tooth around his neck. Instead, he held it in his hands and sensed the vicious energies coming from it. However, he felt some warmth in his heart. 4,000 meters, 5,000 meters, 5,500 meters. They reached a height, just like they did last time, and the low temperatures consumed more and more of the White Tiger Duke's soul power. The White Tiger Duke had transformed into a white tiger, but he had reverted to human form in this moment. It's up to you now, Yuhao. The White Tiger Duke hurtled Hu Yuhao outward with his thick, muscular arms. Hu Yuhao didn't say anything, but he gave the White Tiger Duke a thumbs up with his right hand. He wore his solo battle armor from the get-go today, and 3 pairs of wings stretched out behind his back, and soul power spurted fiercely as he propelled himself into the distance. The White Tiger Duke didn't leave immediately. Instead, he hovered in mid-air and watched as Hu Yuhao disappeared beyond the horizon. For some reason, he felt as if he had lost something when Hu Yuhao departed this time around. That feeling was unique and anxious. Hu Yuhao tore through the darkness and pressed on. He accelerated through the sky, and once his speed reached a certain level, his arms stretched out from both sides of his body as 2 layers of thin leather film connected his arm to his thigh. Wind billowed against those films and created air resistance as he began to glide forward. Hu Yuhao had developed these himself through his experience after he returned that day. The wings of his flying-type soul tool had a relatively weaker effect in controlling the airflow, and he descended too quickly while consuming a lot of soul power earlier on, which was detrimental to his subsequent operations. There were many tasks that he had to complete today, and they were the key components of his expedition this time around. Therefore, he had to conserve his soul power no matter what. Hu Yuhao had already activated spiritual detection. Everything around him flew by in the blink of an eye, and he continued descending as he bore down on the Mingdo mountain range. Hu Yuhao was calm, and seemed as if he had completely integrated into the night sky. The side wings made from leather made him look like a giant bat. Hu Yuhao didn't have to worry about being discovered by surveillance soul tools at a height of 3,000 meters. However, he knew after his previous 2 reconnaissance missions that the Sun Moon Empire would definitely put more effort into their surveillance coverage. The Mingdo mountain range came into view in the distance. Hu Yuhao quickly realized a problem as soon as he activated spiritual detection. There were all sorts of surveillance soul tools clustered and arranged compactly about 3 kilometers from the Mingdo mountain range. The main peak had the most surveillance soul tools around it. There were some odd-shaped surveillance soul tools besides the original ones. These soul tools looked very strange, as if they had been stacked together. If another soul master who was unfamiliar with soul tools were in Hu Yuhao's position, he or she probably wouldn't be able to tell what those things were even if they came close to them. However, Hu Yuhao quickly discerned their identity. These things spell trouble. Those relatively large bases below them, aren't they high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tools? There was another kind of soul tool on top of each high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tool. They were stacked together, which gave them an irregular shape. Those oscillation detectors. Yes, they are oscillation detectors. It's evident that my enemy has realized that normal surveillance soul tools don't work against me. However, oscillation detectors have relatively smaller areas of effect, though they are comparatively heavier at the same time. They were installed on the mountaintops before this. However, they have actually used high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tools as bases, and placed the oscillation detectors on top so that they can hover back and forth through the air in order to find me. The benefit of doing this was that those high-altitude aerial surveillance SOL tools could carry their respective oscillation detectors back and forth through the air between 1,000 and 3,000 meters above the ground. This maximized the oscillation detector's area of effect, and they could lock down the sky entirely as long as there were enough of these things. It seemed as if this plan would therefore be foolproof. Hu Yuhao continued coming closer, because he was gliding through the air. He understood that he couldn't deal with those oscillation detectors at the moment. But if the Sun Moon Empire is trying to stop me with such a plan, then they are too naive. The oscillation detectors' range was their largest problem. Even though the Sun Moon Empire had deployed enough SOL tools, there were still some cracks in their system. Purple hue sparkled at the bottom of Hu Yuhao's eyes as he squinted, and his eye of destiny opened on his forehead, as every single detail was pictured clearly in his mind. He shut his eyes, and only his eye of destiny continued observing far into the distance, as his gentle spiritual power blanketed the area soundlessly. Wave after wave appeared in Hu Yuhao's mind. Those waves were presented three-dimensionally, produced by the oscillation detectors in front of him. The oscillation detector's main concept was that the gentle soul power undulations released would produce feedback once they came into contact with physical matter. Those detectors would carry their own special waves so that they wouldn't be confused when they came into contact with each other. These special waves changed every day to prevent enemies from figuring them out. They affected the air in some way since they were waves. Hu Yuhao leveraged his eye of destiny to amplify his spiritual detection, and accurately captured the rhythm of these waves, before he relied on careful observation to search for their surveillance patterns. 3 kilometers, this was the range that the strongest offensive power that the Sun Moon Empire's defensive perimeter had established on the Mingdo mountain range could reach. Any enemy that was discovered within this range would have a hard time even running away. Hu Yuhao stretched his side wings as wide as possible, and carefully released his soul power, as he activated his imitation, while he carefully observed the soul power undulations in the air. He made his move after about 5 minutes. 3 pairs of wings erupted with formidable soul power, as they propelled Hu Yuhao right towards the highest mountain peak. Hu Yuhao quickly arrived at the 3,000-meter mark. He was still in mid-air, as he suddenly closed his left side wing, and he rolled horizontally as he evaded a surveillance wave. He withdrew the 6 wings behind his back in the next moment, and his body plummeted for a moment as he evaded yet another wave. His wings stretched out and spurted with soul power, as he darted 100 meters forward in an instant, and dodged the next wave. It was a pity that nobody could bear witness to Hu Yuhao's movements. Otherwise, they would realize that Hu Yuhao's waltz was spectacular and extraordinary. He managed to evade an oscillation detector's wave with each changing movement, and he found gap after gap in those seemingly all-covering waves and charged through them. A title Doluor, or perhaps even an ultimate Doluor, could possibly charge right through by relying on their formidable strength. However, pushing forward with Hu Yuhao's dexterity and agility was beyond difficult. The entire process took about the time needed for 7 or 8 breaths in total before Hu Yuhao pushed through the web created by the cluster of oscillation detectors. However, even he began to pant a little after he stabilized his body. That was close. There was once when an oscillation detector's wave was but 10 centimeters away from him. If he had been even one bit slower, the wave would have swept through him, and he would have become target practice. Hu Yuhao could easily imagine the baptism by cannon fire he would receive if the Sun Moon Empire had discovered him, after he had murdered Wang Yiheng. But he managed to push through in the end, and the pitch-black main peak was only 2 kilometers out. Hu Yuhao limited his spiritual detection to a controlled range, and didn't attempt to sweep in the main peak's direction. He was very aware of how frightening the spiritual barrier around the main peak was. All fire would concentrate on him as well if he was discovered because of that. Hu Yuhao flew forward discreetly and gradually, and his alertness was raised to the highest possible level. He slowed his breathing, and it took a long while for him to draw even one breath. He released some of his ultimate ice, so that he could control his body temperature to be identical to the air around him, and it felt as if he had transformed into a dust particle in the air as he floated forward sneakily. Part 2 end here.